Network Entertainment.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to wherever you're watching my podcast from here in the Philippines or from all over the world. And welcome to my podcast, the RJ Ledesma Podcast. In my podcast, I like to interview pioneering business leaders and entrepreneurs to learn more about how they think about doing business, what are their success secrets, and how can we replicate those success secrets? How have they pivoted, evolved, innovated their businesses across the years? But more importantly, what business opportunities do they see emerging here in the near future? Today, we are very, very honored by the presence of the founder and chief visionary officer of the largest global networking organization in the world, BNI. And this year, they celebrate 10 years of BNI here in the Philippines. So we're truly honored by his presence. We have here right now Dr. Ivan Misner. Dr. Misner, thank you so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate you coming over after, I guess, 10 years. What was the impetus that led you to finally say yes to our invitation to come to the Philippines?
Well, I try to go to countries that are in a growth mode, building, because we're in 75 countries. And so there are a lot of countries that are inviting me. And I want to go where I can make the biggest impact. And the Philippines is on fire with networking and obviously with BNI, doing really, really well. So it was an easy yes to see the growth here and to be invited.
Can you give me a better picture, if you just don't mind, of what was your perception before you came, then finally when you came in? What are the insights that you suddenly gained when you came to the Philippines, met the people, saw the fervor for BNI, and also how it's been growing?
So when I go into a new country, I usually just kind of go in with a very open mind. I try not to have any predispositions on the audience, the group. I can tell you that now that I've been here in the Philippines, the members here are on fire. I see why it's growing here. They're sponges for knowledge and information. Mm-hmm. And that is really healthy. And there are countries that we do business in that I think are very complacent. The country has had success for decades, and so they get a little lazy, the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs here are not lazy. They are not complacent. They are fully engaged, really on fire, very excited. And it's fun to see. It's exciting to see the development of entrepreneurism in a developing nation.
And having said that, you're an entrepreneur yourself.
Yeah.
You set up BNI. And usually people who listen to the podcast are not just BNI members. I'm a convert. You don't need to preach to me about how powerful the Business Network International or BNI, how powerful it is in growing your business. But how would I explain in what we call, let's say in a startup, they say it's an elevator pitch. How would I simply explain what BNI was to other people?
BNI is a platform to create referrals for life. In a sentence, that's really what it is. And so whatever business you're in, it's a way to generate a referral-based business. And we don't teach networking or referral marketing in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. Certainly not in the United States where I'm from. We don't teach it. And so what we've tried to do with BNI is not only provide the system, which is the key, but also education to go with it. Business builders, BNI podcast, my blog, ivanmisner.com blog, all of this kind, 29 books I've done, most of them on networking and self-development. So that is a real important element for entrepreneurs because they're in business, but they have no idea how to network. And they generally do it wrong. Mm-hmm. They usually use networking as a face-to-face cold calling opportunity. Right? Hi, my name's Ivan. Let's do business. And the ones that drive me crazy is, here's 4 of my business cards. Maybe you can give 3 to other people. I'm like, I don't even know you. And I don't say this, but it's like, I'm not going to give 3 of your cards to somebody. I don't know if you're any good at what you do. In BNI, it's all about getting to know, like, and trust people. When you do that, you're going to refer people.
That's why there's a vetting process, I like to think.
There is, and that's why we have a membership committee. The membership committee helps to vet new members and also takes a look at the existing members and are they really contributing to the group.
I get that. And The other thing that people often think of, especially here, let's say when we do our networking, is that, like for myself, I'm part of my own professional organization. I belong to a group of real estate developers. I belong to a group of small business owners,
Yeah.
like councils. And at the same time, I'm part of a Rotary Club.
Yeah.
So people often think these are also networking opportunities,
They are.
and they're perfectly legitimate. And I hope you don't mind me asking, why should I add BNI to the list when it takes a lot of commitment and stamina to really build the network?
Well, there's a really good reason. If you're talking to a financial planner, an investment advisor, and they tell you put all your money in one thing, they're not good at what they do. They're probably scamming you because you don't want to put all your money in one thing. And when it comes to networking, you don't want to put all your time in one type of network. And I know it surprises people to hear the founder of BNI say, you should belong to I'm a past Rotarian. So I was in Rotary for many years. Chambers of commerce, professional associations. I think it's important that you diversify the kinds of networks that you're in. Don't join 4 chambers or 2 groups like BNI. Be in a chamber of commerce. Be in a service club like Rotary. Be in a strong contact network like BNI. Then you've diversified the kinds of connections and the purposes of those, because each one has a slightly different purpose. And so I have recommended for years participate in different kinds of networking groups.
Got that. And yesterday, what really intrigued me was when you talked about you're back to being a professor for leadership in several MBA programs.
In an
the
MBA
States.
program at Concordia University.
That's right. And the thing that really what was impressed upon me in your talk here yesterday in the conference was when you said networking is a soft science. So that's why they don't prefer to teach networking. But over the years, you realize how powerful networking can be in building business. Can you just give us an idea of when how powerful strategically built networking can be versus just going out on your own and just giving out the cards?
Right. Let's talk about the soft science first. I did talk about the soft science, but that's not an expression I necessarily use, although I think networking shows leadership, by the way. It's a soft science. That's the excuse the tenured professors in business use. It's like, that's a soft science. We only teach, hard business. And I think they're lying. I think they're fibbing, because the truth is, business professors, most full-time tenured business professors have never run a business. And they don't teach sales, closing techniques. They're not taught in business school. Can you believe we give people bachelor's degrees in marketing and they don't know how to close a sale? Why? Because full-time tenured professors in business, they control the curriculum, and heaven forbid that they get their hands dirty and make a sale.
That's right.
And so that's why we don't teach sales. Networking is a cousin of that. It's connecting with people to build relationships and referrals. So that's why I mentioned the soft science. Now, what was the other part of your question?
Basically, when you see how they built it, how have you seen, I guess, on a case study basis, we would teach people over here, like, how much better can it be when you're able to strategically align yourself with a networking science that you've developed?
Yeah,
here?
well, I mean, let's look at the macro vision of the organization. 11,000, almost 200 chapters in 75 countries. Last year, in 2023, we passed 15.4 million referrals. Okay. At the end of the year, we had like 310,000 members. So they passed 15.4 million referrals. They generated 24.3 billion with a B, 24.3 billion US dollars worth of what we call thank you for closed business. That's what those referrals were valued based on what the members told us. Now, to put that in perspective, based on United Nations estimates of GDP, gross domestic product, there are actually 100 countries in the world with a lower GDP than what BNI generated in business for its members. So we are changing the way the world does business by teaching people how to create referrals for life. And we do more business than 100 countries do in GDP. That's massive, and that's why someone should participate in a group like BNI.
I got that. And what I also appreciate, what many people, when they listen to the program, they sort of go, they're starting off entrepreneurs, they're aspiring entrepreneurs. And we often tell them, what the entrepreneur has to do to have a sustainable long-term business is to figure out what problem they need to solve, or what is the biggest irritation that leads to inspiration to doing business. If you don't mind, when you founded BNI many years ago, what was that biggest irritation that led you to building?
For me, it was referrals.
Yes. How did it work for you? Give us an idea. What was the context during the time?
Well, I was a management consultant, and I got all my business through speaking engagements and referrals. So I went out and did the rubber chicken circuit. That's how I ended up joining Rotary. We went to these service clubs, and I loved Rotary. I joined it, but I participated or spoke at many different service clubs. And I got clients by speaking, but the best business I got were referrals, where somebody said, I know a business consultant that can really help you. And I needed something for that. And so I started going to networking groups, and I went to some networking groups that were just mercenary. Right? I mean, it was sell, sell, sell at those meetings. I'd come back from those meetings and felt like I'd been slimed. I needed a shower, right? And I didn't want to participate in them. Then I went to these other groups that was all social. Happy hour and hors d'oeuvres, no business was being done. I didn't like either of those. What I wanted was a group that did business but wasn't mercenary, a group that was relational but not totally social. And the glue that would hold it together is our philosophy of giver's gain, this idea that if I help you, if I give you business, we'll build a relationship, you'll give me business. And we really did that from the very beginning, even though I did not plan on having more than one chapter. I just wanted one group to help me get referrals and help my friends. And it's now blown up into 11,200 groups.
A truly wonderful vision that you had for BNI at the start. My question is, when you started BNI, sometimes we say as an entrepreneur, if you have a great idea, it stays an idea unless you execute it. So how did it move from, this is a great idea of creating this sort of better networking for business, but how did you actually implement that from there?
Well, I put together a really good group. It was running well. Somebody came who wanted to join the group, but because in BNI we only take one person per professional classification, she was unable to join. And she said to me, would you help me open up a second group, a group that I can run, she said. And I actually said to her, I said, no, this isn't what I do. I'm a business consultant. I don't run networks. But she talked me into it, and we kicked off a group, and two people came who couldn't join, and they said, this is great, but I can't join because my profession's represented. Would you help us open a network? And I said, no, this isn't what I do. They talked me into it. And at the end of a year, I had 20 chapters without trying. And that was the spark for me. That was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I had no idea that people were so hungry for a system and a process of generating referrals. I thought it was just me. I was young. I was 28 years old when I started.
Wow.
So, and we're celebrating our 40th anniversary in just a few months. So that I'm 68 years old. Yeah. But I was only 28, and I thought business people knew how to generate referrals. They didn't, and that was what clicked. And I was like, okay, I've struck a chord in the business community. I need to pay attention to this. In marketing, there's push marketing and pull marketing. Push marketing, you're pushing. It's like pushing a rock uphill. Pull marketing, you're getting pulled through the marketplace. I was being pulled through the marketplace. And at the end of the year, I thought, I got to pay attention to this because this is something unique. And that's when I decided to scale BNI and create a plan to scale the organization.
Tell me a bit more about that scaling plan.
Yeah.
People are that's where people want to, usually when you talk to entrepreneurs, it's a difference from scaling from 1 to 5 stores than 5 to 20.
Yeah.
And what challenges approached you this time? Because you said everything seemed to be working for you. It was well oiled, but then when you scaled it a bit more than that, that's when the challenges started coming in.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, at that point, it was about creating systems and processes. And so I wrote everything down. I wrote what worked, I wrote what didn't work. And then it was about training, because education within a business context is a leaky bucket process. If you train me how to do something, some of the information leaks out. And then when I train somebody else, more information leaks out. And so if you don't have manuals and systems in place, then it becomes diluted, the training. So everything was in writing, systems were in place. I learned early on, and this is one of the biggest mistakes that I think entrepreneurs make. So you want to be successful in business? Do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. And most business people do 1,000 things 6 times, and they can't figure out why they're not scaling their business. Stop it. And it doesn't have to be 6, it could be 5, it could be 7. But you do a handful of things and you do it over and over. And if I have any superpower at all, it is that I am a dog with a bone. I will work something and work something and work something until I get it right. And I think entrepreneurs keep chasing bright, shiny objects. So what 6 things? I don't know. They're your key success factors, the thing that make your business work. How do you figure out what that is? You listen to podcasts like this, where you hear people who talk about something that goes, that resonates with me. I'm gonna follow that idea. You read books, go to YouTube, listen to people, watch people that you respect that can be virtual mentors for you. And then you figure out what your key success factors are, and you just do it over and over, and you be relentless about that.
Admittedly, these are some of the things I've heard from your own podcast, and what you particularly said, that's what resonated with me, because as a serial entrepreneur with a lot of different tasks, that's something that I should take to heart when you tell me, do 6 things 1,000 times. And my wife's been telling me the same thing as well, to simplify how you do business. The other interesting thing which I find is that, you develop giver's gain philosophy. I mean, it sounds simple and very powerful, but how did you come to that point?
Well, it really is, the basis of it is the concept of the law of reciprocity, which is a theory that's been around a long time, which is basically, if I help someone with no real strings attached, I just want to be able to help you, then I can build a relationship, a professional relationship. And when I do that, they're more likely to help me. When you think about, who's your best friends? They're people who are there for you, right? They want to help you. And in business, it's very much the same. And so the law of reciprocity was kind of long. And I wanted to tighten that up into just a couple of words that said said the same thing. And giver's gain was just perfect. It said it all. If you want to get business, you have to be willing to give business. You have to help other people. And giver's gain is more than a phrase to me. It's a way of living one's life. And if it's applied properly, it'll change your life. And if it changes enough lives, it'll change the world. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, changing somebody's life, one closed business at a time.
Yeah. I said early on, long before BNI was huge, you may not be able to make a world of difference, but you can make a difference in the world. And you do it one person at a time, one group of people at a time. And the more you do that, the more it expands on itself. And that's always been my philosophy. I don't have to make a world of difference, but I can make a difference in the world. And now, 40 years later, I kind of feel like maybe I've made a little difference in the world.
Especially in this island in Southeast Asia. Thank you so much.
Oh, truly my pleasure. I really enjoyed being here in the Philippines.
And I wonder, when you were growing, I'm sure you've shared many of the stories of failure in the podcast. Were there any point where you felt that, as you were building BNI, I want to give up. I can't do this anymore. Or there was some big obstacle in the way that didn't make you want to pursue?
So is this podcast a few hours long, or is it just? There are so many things. People look at someone who's achieved some level of success, and they just assume that they were either, born with a silver spoon. I was not. I was raised in a fairly low-income, blue-collar family, and as I was building my business, I made lots and lots of mistakes. I remember. I think the time I felt most like a failure was when I was 35. And I just had not achieved the level of success that I thought I would by my mid-30s. And at 35, I probably had, maybe 100 chapters of BNI. And it was a real struggle. And because nobody understood what it was, I was constantly trying to teach people what it is.
At 100 chapters? Wow.
Yeah, I felt like I was a failure. And then, I finally, at some point, I said to myself, buck up, buttercup. This is a good idea. Stick with it. And I did, and now we have over 11,000 chapters. But there were, at least once in my career, I almost filed bankruptcy because of financial challenges, doing business development on an online platform, which almost bankrupted me. Made lots of mistakes. I think where a lot of people go wrong with the mistakes is they give up. I think I look at mistakes as being my tuition for success. And you learn from it. Don't do that again. Learn from that, do something different. And so I've had a lot of failures, but I've tried to learn from most of those failures and not do them a second time.
And when was the point, let's flip it around. When was the point when you looked at BNI and you said, wow, we've done something great. Or what was that one moment where you said, wow, BNI's gotten somewhere?
Yeah. It would have been a few years back, maybe 10 years ago, 15, where I went to an international BNI convention, and I saw all the flags of all the countries that BNI represented all around the room. Dozens and dozens of flags, and the different accents of all of the participants in different languages, and we had translation booths. And I looked at that, and I was humbled by what BNI had become. I was in awe of what BNI became. Going to an international convention of BNI is like going to a United Nations meeting where all the countries love each other. Right? Imagine that. Yeah. I mean, that's it. You get 75 countries together and they're all happy and they love one another and they want to help each other. That's what Givers Gain can do in the world.
Fantastic. Now, as we start to wrap up this interview, and you're looking at the Philippines basically, and we're looking to grow up to 10,000 members from base of about 1,500 here right now. What do you think it will take for a country like the Philippines to grow in terms of networking?
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. The BNI program is really effective. It works in 75 countries. I would say the Philippines gets it right now. But as it grows, it's very easy for entrepreneurs to start chasing bright, shiny objects. And the big challenge will be to get people to say, stay on the path. The path works. Mm-hmm. It's working in many countries. It's working here in the Philippines. Where it tends to go wrong is when people start getting off the path. And so follow the program, follow the system. You'll continue to grow. One of the things I love about the Philippines is that you're sponges for learning and education. And like I said earlier, not all countries have that right now, but the Philippines does.
Well, thanks so much. I'm glad that you're helping us see things which we can't see through our. When you get jaded, sometimes you don't get to see all those things.
Oh, you guys are doing great. I think probably one of the most important lessons for those of you listening is to understand that networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. That it's about cultivating relationships with people. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Mm-hmm. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes a long time to really build those relationships. But if you do it, wow, it changes your life.
And talking about changing lives, you've had a chance to see so many businesses over the years that have joined, so many different classifications that have come in.
Yeah.
May I just ask, in your own opinion, you're seeing it globally and even in different regions, what do you think are the emerging business opportunities that entrepreneurs can still leverage and grow in?
Well, I think the effective utilization of technology in almost every industry is absolutely critical. Certainly in BNI, we recognize that as time goes on, the platform orientation of our meetings is going to become more and more important. Mm-hmm. Right now, 68% of our organization after COVID has gone back to meeting in person, but 16% meets 100% online.
Like us, like my group, BNI Lead.
And 16% meet as a hybrid, once a month in person and the rest of the month online. Now, in 2019, actually in 2018, I wrote an article for Entrepreneur that said the future of face-to-face is online.
That's right.
And BNI directors were like, oh, the old man's losing it. It's like, he's crazy. This is an in-person organization. I didn't see COVID coming, but I saw the technology changing. So when COVID hit, boom, that put us very quickly into online. We transitioned almost 10,000 chapters to online within weeks, country by country. And so I think technology is going to continue to be a game changer and potentially a force multiplier for businesses if they know how to use it effectively.
And are there any technologies that you're particularly interested in or that you think that entrepreneurs should take a good look at?
Yeah, well, I mean, the metaverse, holographic imaging, 3D technology, there's just no question that that's the future. And a lot of people think that's Star Wars. And a little bit it is. You get the holographic image of a Jedi Knight and a real Jedi. And when we get to that point where our meetings are with holographic images, I want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. I really think that's not, there'll be some different variation of it. We had, for the first time just 6 months ago, our first BNI meeting where the president ran the meeting as a holographic image.
Wow.
The president was a holographic image. Now, the technology's not there to do that quite yet because it takes equipment, for one person to show up on glass as a holographic image. So it's not there yet, but I think that's where it's going. And we're going to have, instead of meetings on Zoom, we're going to have holographic meetings.
Fantastic. And
I'm for it.
I'm waiting to see you as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I want to be Obi-Wan.
I'm glad to be your Padawan.
All right, okay. Thank you. You have a deal.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
This will be a one-to-one for me. Okay, one-to-one.
Absolutely.
Remember that one. Now, Ivan, I want to ask, because you've had a chance to put BNI in developed economies like Germany and Spain, Italy, the States. But you're also doing it in developing countries, in many African countries, some Latin American countries, and some countries here in Asia. Have you seen differences in terms of what opportunities are being pursued, let's say, in developing countries that have been very well, that we can further pursue, and what we can bring from developed countries into developing countries?
Well, one of the things that I see in developing countries as membership is there are more manufacturers in developing countries, particularly in Asia, India, the Asian nations, than there are in the developed countries. And I'm not entirely sure why, but there are more. There are more manufacturing businesses than in Western society or developed nations.
Which is very interesting, because in the Philippines, we're actually a service-oriented economy, because we kind of skipped the manufacturing and went straight to call center, and doing call centers as one of the main.
Yeah, but you also have a member here that that produces cards for. I forget what it's called, but basically all your information's on the card.
Exactly,
you swipe, and they manufacture that. And so that's an unusual business that you don't see in too many countries around the world.
I see. And finally, if we were to look back at your 40 plus years of doing business, and you were to speak to your younger self and say, how could we hack our way to better success in a shorter period of time that we could share with other entrepreneurs, what would those advice be?
I don't think I would focus on a shorter period of time. Trying to cut down the time doesn't necessarily increase the productivity. I feel pretty good about the fact that it took a while for us to gear up, because we were, I think in the long run, way more successful. So I would say have patience. More important than anything else, live your values. Stick to your values. Don't do business with people that have values that are completely incongruent with yours. And that was the way I did business, and I'm glad that I did. And I would tell my younger self, stick to that. That's important. And don't worry about, it's not about speed. It's about where you end up. It's not about where you come from, it's where you go. And so that's what I would say.
And with that, thank you so much, Dr. Ivan Misner. It's been truly a pleasure for having you here in the Philippines.
Thank you.
As we say in the Philippines, long live mabuhay kayo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
And we'll see you in the next podcast.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.